and welcome everyone. Today in December 2024, this is the last of our project recipe events for the year. I'm thrilled today to welcome one of our Projectkin members, our special VIPs, who has been an active participant in our Projectkin programming for now, I suppose it's been nearly a year since we first launched Projectkin, and it's been a delight to have her an active guest on some of our programs. So today we are hosting Lynda to be sharing a recipe for a project she has been doing as part of her ongoing artwork. And I thought it really such an extraordinary example of storytelling. So Lynda Heines, with that, let me get out of the way and turn it over to you with our presentation today. Go ahead, please, Lynda.
That was a great introduction. And Barbara and I'll just get started. We are going to talk about art quilts and other kind of fabric art that you can transform your stories or your research into the fabric art. Now, when we say quilts, everybody thinks about grandma's quilts or maybe auntie's quilts. And quilts are great, but they're not what we're talking about. But they do tell stories. I have a whole bunch of my grandma's quilts, and all of them have fabric in them that are probably grandma or grandpa's shirts or dresses, and also my mom's. But the memory I have from them is as a little girl going to grandma's, and in the dining room, she had the quilt frame set up, and all of her cronies, all of her friends got around, and they had a thimble on one of their fingers, and they were doing, sewing every little inch, little bitty stitches. And they were, of course, talking about their stories. But we're not talking about these kind of quilts. We're talking about art quilts. And art quilts here's a couple definitions. An art quilt is an original expression of a concept or idea rather than handing down of a pattern. Art quilts are meant to be displayed and not meant to warm a body. Art quilts contain 3 layers, just like regular quilts do: the top, the middle, and the back. But we're not going to just talk about art quilts. We're just going to talk about how you can put your stories in fabric. So first of all, why would you want to do that? Why fabric? Well, there's a lot of ways to tell our stories. Of course, you can tell in a book. You can do it in a podcast or videos or on Substack. There's just a lot of ways to tell your story, scrapbooking. But there's something about fabric. And I used to be a scrapbooker many, many years ago, and I love to tell my story that way. But I got to the point that I wanted to use fabric. And that was my slippery slope. And I'm really into just fabric. But I love the feel and the touch of fabric. When you have a book or you have a wall hanging, it's nice to go up to it and you can feel it. But one of the biggest things that really I love about it is it adds your creativity to the project. So, you've done your research and you want to do this on maybe an ancestor or maybe a vacation, and you have all the pictures and the verbiage and all that. And, you put that in a book, but it's not the same as if you put it in a fabric project, because you have to choose the fabric, how to lay it out, any kind of little bits you want to put on it. So it really is more not just that story, but it's also you. And that's what makes it so special. Also, you can create art for the wall, books to display, and then also it's also something to pass down, like grandma's quilts. So before you can really decide on what kind of fabric project you're going to do, you need to know what story you're going to tell, because it really depends on what type of story, how you're going to do this. So we could start with the smallest, and this is a postcard or greeting card. And this is a story in a very small place. What's neat about it is it can be framed. It could be attached and put on a card and sent. It's just another way of telling a story. And I have stories about these postcards. I do want to say this was from every year the Facebook group Postcard Fabric Arts Group, and if you're ever interested in this, they would love to have you as to join them. But every year they have a challenge, and for one year they did decades. So this was these are three of them from that challenge I did. So on the right is a picture in fabric of my grandmother's and my mom's and dad's ration books. And so that was 1940. So I talked about the different, about ration books, why they had to ration and what they all meant and how they used them and that kind of thing. So it told the story, even though it's a little bitty piece of fabric. Then we have 1950s, and the only thing I could think of was 50s, was stupid saddle Oxfords I had to wear, and I absolutely hated them. You always had to polish them because the white always got scuffed up, and you had this little, if you remember, if those of you old enough to remember, they had this little wand that had this little ball on the end, and that's how you how you had to paint them. And then you had to be careful you didn't get them on the black, and it was terrible. I hated those shoes. Anyway, I didn't want to do that. Let's go back. This is in 2020. For that decade, I finally found Great Aunt Mary, and this was my grandfather's sister, and I had looked for her for years. And so to me, that was my story is, I finally found her, and some of the information that I found was exciting. Plus, I found that someone sent me that wedding picture. Also, we didn't say this at the beginning, Barbara, but if you have any questions during this and you want to stop me, that is fine. I have no problem with that at all. Now, an actual art quilt is 3 layers, just like quilts are. This is the top layer. You have a batting, which I like to use felt or some kind of batting, and then the back, which is just a piece of fabric. Now, to be an art quilt, it has to be bound on all sides. So usually it's either like the binding that you see on quilts, regular bed quilts, or it's facing, or there's a lot of different ways that you can bind them, but they need to be bound on the edge to be official art quilts. And they can tell stories. For instance, this is just a 2-picture story. This is my grandmother and her sister, and I entitled Sister and Best Friends. So when you look at the pictures, of course, pictures sometimes are worth 1,000 words. And this is Grandma and her sister Lucy. And then there's this Grandma and Lucy again, a couple, probably 30 years later. And unfortunately, I never met Lucy because she died before I was born. But it's just, an interesting, a little story on here without any much verbiage at all. The fabric you can use, I use fabric that I create, but you can use any kind of fabric you want. And I've added here on this edges some vintage, I think they're vintage napkins, and just to make it a little bit different. But that's one way of using an art quilt. But you can also frame your art quilt, which really, for those of us like me that don't like to bind them, it's really nice to have them framed. And this again tells a story of a vacation this summer that I got on horseback, and I swore I'd never get on horseback after 40 years ago. I said I'd never get on it again, and I did, and I had a great time and look forward to doing it again. But again, this is something that you could have a picture from some time. It could be a celebration, a reunion that you could have and send it to someone you love. You also can do a gallery of pictures, and I chose to use a vintage piece of fabric. This is a table runner that I cut in half and made it a gallery of my mom's pictures. So it started when she was in school, and then about 17 years old, and then mom and dad getting married, our family when we were young, and then my mom and dad's trip to Hawaii, and my last picture of her. But we all have timelines if we're doing genealogy. And timelines are really neat, and I really like timelines, but there's nothing like looking at them in fabric. Looking at them, you can really see them, see how the time went. Um, this is my Aunt Irene, and she, she's born in 1904, and then in 2005 we had a 100th year birthday party at the nursing home. And this is me, and there's Irene there. And I love this picture of all of us and at her 100th birthday cake. But she died the next year in 2006. She died at 101, but she really was like 2 days from her 102nd birthday. So this is really a special piece for me. And you could do this with anybody. You could do it with your grandparents or just anyone that's special, and it doesn't have to have the ending of their life even. Sometimes it's really hard to deal with large photos, a large group and a photo. And this is showing, I've done it on Ancestry. I put the names over the people, and it just looks, it's kind of bad. And sometimes it's hard to see. Sometimes you put the names under it and you have this long list of names and you're trying to figure out who's who. Well, this is a way of doing it that's graphic. And you can see, like, if I'm looking for this is my grandfather here, but I'm looking for his sister, Mary. She's number 5. So I know if I look at number 5 here in my little drawing, there's Mary right there. So this was their reunion of the Shots and Weasels family, and my grandfather, his father died, and then his mom remarried a weasel, so he has all those siblings. But I took a piece of white fabric, I reduced this photo, and then I put a piece of fabric over it and just outlined them. So it's pretty crude, but it does well. It works with it. Additional topics for one-page fabric art could be a family tree, houses, places, maps where ancestors live. I have a book in my reference section here of a woman that has done one on both of her grandparents and had made the roads under it, and then the pictures of her grandparents, and it showed how far they lived from each other. Just a really idea. Special recipe is something that I've thought about doing, but you could do it on some special recipe you have in your family. My grandmother has she always had her special pumpkin pie. And I would have grandmother's picture, and then I'd have a picture of the pie I've made, and then her recipe. And if I had a recipe in her writing, it would be really neat. But I do have it in my mother's writing, and that could be framed to put in the kitchen. Family heirlooms, you could have special day with several pictures like a film roll. There's no ending of what kind of topics you can make for one-page fabric art. But we're going to talk about books now. And this is all about all types of stories in a longer form. And these are 3 different types of book with 3 different bindings. And we're going to start with Jillian's clothes. My friend Martha's daughter's name is Jillian, and through the years I've dyed stuff for her and made stuff for her. But when she was real little, I made her this book, and her mom sent me all her favorite clothes, and I cut them up and put them in here. And so this was not only a keepsake for her, but a learning tool. For instance, on this page spread, I've got her favorite dress, and then I've got buttons, buttons, buttons. Let's button up your dress. So she could button up her dress. I had her, I cut part of her shoe out, sewed it on, and said, let's tie up your shoe, and so snaps and all kinds of things. So it was really a learning tool for her. She took it to her first show and tell, and her mom and her both are really happy. And it'd be nice, something for her to pass on or to show her kids when she gets to be that age. This is a ring binder, and which is an easy way to bind a quilt or a fabric book. If you don't want to deal with grommets, yourself, you can go ahead, and they do make these books that they're already made, and all you have to do is add your own fabric. This is another book. This is Bampie and Mayo. This is my grandma and grandpa. And this is a great way of sharing ancestors' lives or any other events or anything that any story you want to tell, really. It makes a great coffee table book if you have a coffee table. It's not a book that you're going to put with your other books in the shelf because you'll want to let it sit out or give it to somebody that will set it out. This is a different and an easy binding. It's called tab binding. And I want to do a little flip through on it. So of course it's grandma and grandpa at the top there in front. This is their actual wedding picture that's printed on fabric, and the notice was in the paper. I typed it because it was really hard to read from the old paper. This is where they built their house and lived all their life. Some pictures of grandma and grandpa. My grandpa owned a company, so this is about his company, and a little bit about that. And then this is my mom was their only child, so that's about her. And then again about grandma, her sister, and mom and her cousin. So that's just and that's just another way of binding, and you also can add pages to it too. The next one is it's an October 2023 fabric book. And this book was, if you read my Substack post, it's called A Letter to Steve. I wrote my ex-brother-in-law a letter after my sister died to let him know that she had died, and they had been divorced for 40-something years. And from that, we've become friends. And so he and his wife and Dave and I have taken trips with them and also visited them. This book is about the very first trip when we got to meet them face to face after talking to them quite a bit. This is on my YouTube, but I'm going to talk over it so you don't, there. Okay, it's a recycle. Another fabric is great to use is recycled jeans. And one thing about this is we were outside most of the time and it was cool. So it pretty much is about what the book is. This is another binding. It's just a sewn binding. There are a lot of paper books are made with the sewing, with the binding like this. And it's real easy. This is what the inside looks like of each 4-page spread. This has 3 spreads, so it has 12 pages. And this is very simple. There's no text in it. It's just pictures. Just kind of gives I've given this to Sharon and Steve, and it gives them, helps them memory. They remember now what all we did, like play croquet, and we did a lot of hiking and spent time in their woods. And Sharon and I redid the Irish garden, and that just some great experiences, some more hiking, and I made all those leaves from prints. I printed leaves, and Dave was in Steve's workshop. So again, there's no verbiage, and there could be. You could have all kinds, you could write about all kinds of things. But that was that book. So to get started, and that was just giving you examples, just some ideas if you're interested in incorporating fabric to tell your stories. You need to gather photos or other information. So also, if you don't have photos, birth, death, marriage certificates, passenger lists, military records, whatever tells your story. And then your text. Now, like I said, and you'll see in this picture, the wedding announcement for my grandparents, I could have taken the picture of the newspaper, but it just wasn't very clear, and then printed it on fabric, but I didn't. I went ahead and typed it up myself. And again, you need text for your story, any kind of vintage fabric, lace, etc., if you want to. It'd be neat if you have a piece, like if you're talking about your grandmother, if you have something of hers that you want to put in there. Additional supplies, how we're getting the photographs and any of the text, we're using inkjet fabric sheets. There are lots of ways to transfer photos or other things onto fabric, but this is the easiest way I have found, and it's fast. I use June Taylor, but there are a lot of other inkjet fabric sheets. You also need fabric, vintage linens if you want to use them, etc. For the inside, I use felt or batting, and I don't use craft felt. I use either rayon and wool felt, or there is a polyester felt that is between craft felt and wool felt. It's cheaper than wool felt, or the other one. Then we got the glue stick or the fusible sheets. This is a fusible web, and this is our it's just school glue. It's washable school glue, and I'll show you what we do with that. Scissors, cutting mat, sewing machine, or hand sewing supplies. You can sew all these by hand, but I'm not a hand sewer. I rather zip it through the sewing machine. Iron, and then optional paint. If you have a linen that you feel like, I'd really like to have that light green, or maybe I'd like to have it a little bit darker, you can use any craft paint you have around the house. Since we're not washing this, we don't have to worry about it losing its hand. I do like, or the feel of it. I do like using fabric paint, but you don't have to use that if you don't have any. Also, if you have watercolors, you can color your the fabric with watercolors. Micron pens are great to write on fabric. Not on, you wouldn't be writing on your inkjet sheets. You would be writing on plain old fabric that you have or that you get. If you have good handwriting, it would be really nice to write everything out. And like even the anything that you want to describe, like how I described where they lived, my grandparents lived, and my grandfather's business. But my handwriting is awful, so I didn't do that. But you can do that, and all you have to do with that is just iron over it, and that seals it. So we're going to start on the process on one of the projects, and this was the timeline. So what we did is I start with my fabric. I chose this piece of fabric, and then I covered, I took this is the batting, or what really the felt. This is a Misty Fuse fusible web, but it's you can see it's very, you can see through it, transparent. I put that down on the felt and then put the fabric on top and ironed it. And that will make my quilt sandwich. So then I still have to, wait a minute, before I do that, I still have to put fusible on the backing fabric and to the back of the felt. So you'll end up with a fused sheet, your fused sandwich of your topping, your felt, and your backing fabric. So that's your quilt sandwich. Now, there's an option. You can pin this or you can clip it, but there's a lot of there's a lot of wiggle room if you do that. It can get off, and if you get it glued down, then that works so much better. It just they don't move. It's stuck that way, and that's the way you want it. The next thing is to decide on your photos and your text, and think about the size you want them. You might have to mock up a size on your fabric, just with paper or whatever, and then you put them on pages in the computer, because you're thinking ahead, because you'll eventually be printing this out on that inkjet fabric sheet, and you don't want to they're kind of pricey, so you don't want to put you don't want to have to put 2 pictures on one and 3 in the next one. You need to get everything on as much as you can. So this shows you that's what I did. Now, before you print it out on fabric, you print it on paper. So you're printing this all on paper, and then you're going to cut it up. Then you're going to go to your piece, and we're doing for placement, and we're auditioning all of this stuff. So we're auditioning this, and I've laid it down how I want it to lay down. When I first did it, I didn't take a picture of it, but Irene's picture was too small, so I made it bigger. This picture was too large, so I made it smaller. So then I printed out again, and oh, now I like how it looks. So this is how I want it to be. So once I'm happy with everything, and of course I've printed all these out, and again, if you can write, that would be what I would recommend, is writing these out instead of on plain white fabric or whatever fabric you want to use, instead of having to print them out. But again, my handwriting's terrible. So once you're happy with the layout and you know you've got everything the way you wanted, then you go ahead and print it on the fabric, on the inkjet fabric. So here I am. I have finished sewing the timeline down. It's just a ribbon. And then I have taken each of the dates and the explanation and have glued them down with my glue stick. Again, this is just washable glue that most people have around the house. And what we're doing is we're just securing it to the fabric so that when we sew it, it stays there. And again, I talk about, if it's optional to handwrite instead of typing it. So once the timeline is all sewn, then I'm going to place the pictures again. And this time these are all, fabric now. Now I decided I didn't really like them without some kind of a frame. So I decided to pick some fabric and see about framing them. So this is what I did. What's good to do on a lot of things like this is to take a picture and then look at it later, see what you think of it. It's just different looking at it, because I really thought it looked kind of neat until I looked at the picture and I thought, no, I don't think I want the brown ones. I want them to be all black. They'd be more vintage looking. So since most of them are vintage pictures, so I added the fabric. I added all black to these, and now before I take it to the sewing machine, I will take the picture and I will add fusible web between it and the black piece, and then I'll do it between the black and iron it, and then put a fusible between the black and the top fabric, and then you iron it all down, and then it's stuck. So then you could go ahead and sew, and it's not going to move it. Now you can use a glue stick with this. These pictures are probably small enough to do that. I just am concerned about it gluing up my needle, the glue, affecting that, and I just didn't want to take the chance. But again, it could be used, since it's not like the whole big sheet like we had of putting these three pieces together, the original quilt sheet, quilt sandwich. So we are ready now, because I've cut all these, and I have attached them. So now everything's attached, and then I'll sew around them, and then I get the result. So on the last one, there was some batting or some felt that was hanging out here. So I trimmed that up, and everything is sewn down, and I'm ready to either frame it or to bind it. I probably put this in a frame. So that was really, kind of a quick thing about how to do that. And I wanted to give you some references. If you're interested in any of this, Leslie Riley has a wonderful book called Photo Memory Quilts, and she goes through her way she puts these together. She's done some wonderful work on memory quilts, and these, of course, are art quilts. She also has a great online class. I took the online class, and you could see exactly how she makes decisions on picking out. Like I was telling you, I picked that out, decided the brown didn't work. Well, she does that with all kinds of fabric. And it really takes her through the process more than I've taken you through, and which I really loved. One time I disagreed with her, when I was telling her she doesn't know I disagreed with her. But anyway, when I was doing the online, and it was just a recording. And I said, I don't think that one works, but it did work after all. The other one is Valerie Goodwin's Art Quilt Maps. And this is the one where she had made a map of the city and placed over it, this is all in fabric, placed over it two pictures of her grandparents, the two houses were, and it was just amazing. So there's just that's a lot of interesting, it captures a sense of place with fabric. So I think that's really, really cool. The last one is my website, lindaheines.com. And I have a lot of tutorials on all kinds of things fabric related. I do go through making the book for Stephen and Sharon, which is the October 23 book. I made a lot of changes, and I looked over it today and realized that there's like 5 blog posts, and I changed my mind so many times until I finally came up to what I wanted to do. The one Jillian's book is also in there. I will be posting in a couple of weeks. I want to make another one of the tab books, and I'll be doing a step by step on that. So anyway, that's all I have. There's just something different about putting your story in fabric. I'm not saying it's any better. It's just another way. So anyway, thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your questions or comments, and I can get out of this if you'd like. Or does anybody want anything?
Yeah, it'd be best to go ahead and take that down. Lynda, that was fabulous. Thank you so much. I think one of the first questions that folks are asking about is, wait a minute, you hit a little bit on that with respect to printing photos to fabric. You talked about using these various solutions for laser jet printers. And I couldn't help myself. There's also apparently iron-on as well. Do you have some opinions on the best way to select those and what to look for?
But it is inkjet, not
Inkjet. Yeah.
laser.
Sorry.
There's
Yeah.
all kinds of ways, and I've tried all kinds of, there's, you can use Mod Podge, and this is just a really easy way to do it, because you can just, you print them out. It's just like having pictures, but it's on fabric. You print it out, you iron them for a couple minutes, or not a couple minutes, a couple seconds, and then you cut them out and place them. I think supposed to let them dry for like 10 minutes or something, then iron them, and then you just place them or cut them out and place them there. It's so much easier. I mean, there's lots of other ways to do it. But to me, if you're just starting out in this would be the way to do it.
If you don't have if you don't have an inkjet printer, I'm obviously giving myself away. If you don't have an inkjet printer, what do you think of the iron-on options?
I would probably send it, like Kinko's, or now the Kinko's don't even
Uh,
exist anymore. One of those
oh, but
places would probably
FedEx,
print it for,
FedEx bought them. Yeah.
they probably would have
Okay.
them.
So look for it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure
Okay.
there's any laser for it, because I used to have a laser. I don't have a laser
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. Well, what I was thinking was you laser print the iron-on ones and then iron that on, but you'd have to do it in reverse.
Yes, yes. Oh, now there's Leslie has a fabric. Why can't I think of her fabric? I've got it here somewhere. And what it does is but you have to reverse everything. And if you put text down, and because I screwed up and I wasted a lot of it. And it's interesting, but again, it's you're rubbing it on, you're ironing it on, you're not
Ah,
printing on the fabric. You're not taking that
I
piece of fabric and
see.
putting it directly on there. You're just
Okay.
saving a step.
Great tip. And what I love about this is that, so many of the examples that those packages offer are frankly boring. What you're doing is so delightful and creative. I love that. You have my attention.
Thank you. Thank you.
Questions? Go ahead, anyone. Take yourself off mute and come on in.
Yes, Jennifer. Jennifer.
Not a question, just a comment. That was just absolutely wonderful. So thank you, Lynda. So in the old days, before I was bitten by the genealogy bug, I used to be a quilter, and that was my passion. But I had to follow a pattern. I wasn't creative enough to,
Oh,
but but I loved it. But I never would have thought of combining the two, quilting and telling the family stories. And
yeah.
they're absolutely beautiful, and I can just imagine them being passed down, whereas sometimes maybe a book, if you put your information into a book, that might just sit on a shelf and then get tossed out. So no, really great. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, I gave that book to Steve and Sharon. And so we went down there like the next month, and they had it laying on their coffee table. And so everybody
Oh,
that comes in, and like I met some of their friends and they said, oh, I loved your book. So I mean, they're all, and then we went on vacation in June and she said, are you gonna make me another one? I haven't got around to that. I said, I haven't got around to that. I don't know what I'm going. I'm going to, but we'll have
the
to wait. But
pressure's on
anyway,
now.
it is like that. And again, it's putting you in there, not
Mm,
just the story, because you're in
yeah,
that too. That's what I
yeah,
love about it. It's showing
yeah,
your creativity. So, yep.
yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
wonderful. Thank you. Yeah.
And Mary, thank you with some tips there for color laser printer
Oh,
Yeah,
solutions.
yes.
Lisa Capon Quilt, she's got a couple of YouTube videos and I have printed on fabric with hers and been very, very happy with the results with her methodology.
Great.
She doing it? What kind of, is it laser, you say?
It's laser and she adheres fabric to freezer paper
Yeah.
and then feeds that through the printer.
Yeah, you can do that, or you could put it on, if I've got those labels, like labels that you use, they have come
Mhm.
in a whole page label. I mean, that's an option, a whole page label, and you put that on the back of it, and then, cut it paper size, and then it comes paper size. The label comes paper size, and you cut the fabric to paper size, and you put them together, and then you run it. The only thing about that is I'm not sure how stable it is as far as the color. And if you're wanting to do this for, to save and to pass down, I really trust June's, the one that's been pre-treated. But again, if you're just doing, but to me, yeah. So that, yeah.
Yeah. I've used color laser and then retain and
Yes.
I've got a Cricut heat press, so I do all that. And I mean I did a bookcase quilt that has photos in the bookcase
Oh, wow.
and use that. So
That's great. But you have a
yeah.
laser. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, because I don't have an inkjet, and so the inkjet paper doesn't work for me. So
Yeah. Well, that's
I had to
great.
figure out
Laser.
another way. Yeah,
Well, it's
yeah.
great that laser works. That's wonderful. Yeah. And you got a
I had
Cricut.
I had trouble back in the day with inkjet printers and fading of colors for, when print your own photos was a new thing. I've got a lot of faded photos around the house. Have you seen fading in things that you laser print to fabric? Does that fade to sunlight?
Um, I try to keep the quilts out of sunlight. I mean, for me,
Just a good idea in
and
general.
yeah, and I mean, I've got one that's like 4 years old, maybe, or 3 years old. I haven't had any fading yet, but I mean, it's not 50 years old, so I don't know
Yeah.
what'll happen in.
I'm inspired by their background there. And your example, Lynda, of maps. Maps are such a natural surface to quilts. I can remember as a kid driving little cars around on fabric,
Yes.
pretending it was a map. That's brilliant.
What is that behind you, Mary?
This is a place in County Tyrone, Ireland. I had a gravestone that told me the place where my ancestor came from, and it took me years to figure out what that was because it's not a townland. It's just a wide spot in the road. And finally, I found the place, drove my map around a Griffiths valuation 1850s era map, and found the word. And then the Griffiths valuation website allows you to get an aerial photo, a satellite
Oh,
photo of it, basically. And I used that as a pattern and made a quilt it's about 25 maybe by 18,
oh my
and I used it
gosh.
as my backdrop.
Gorgeous. It's
Um,
That's
fantastic.
great.
thank
Yeah.
you, thank you. It's kind of funny. I used my FOF Creative Performance plow to plow all the furrows in it, and then I actually got to go to the place. It's really hilly. There are no crops growing. It's basically sheep grazing thing. So all my furrow lines don't exist in real life, but I needed some way to quilt it. So
That's great. That's
thank you.
great.
Thank you.
Other questions? Come on in. Hit that mute button and join us.
I want to hear what Kathy has in her
Yeah,
background.
I want to know what that's in your background, really. Kathy?
Mine?
I can't claim that I own that. That was something created in a group I belong to who do digital scrapbooking. So that was just a little art background created by the leader of that group.
Well, it sure is neat.
So it's all digital art.
Yeah, definitely. That's
And
beautiful.
it's backwards and it says Canadian Gals because the group is Canadian Gals Love Artisan, which is the software project.
That's,
See it right way around.
that's great.
See if we can fix that.
No, it's right way around, Kathy.
Oh, is it? To me, it
Right,
looks
yeah,
backwards.
it's right. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just quit looking at it then. Yes, they do incredible. The group I'm in, some of the ladies, they do incredible things in their books. So.
Come on in, more
Well-
questions. I hear you.
Lynda, you've inspired me to try to do something for my husband for our anniversary.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
I want
And
to
he
do a
would
book.
love that. I've
Hadn't
done a
thought of-
little bitty one. I've done little bitty ones for him, but I've never done anything that big. So that would be nice. Great.
That was ingenious. I can't even imagine. I have enough job doing pictures, let alone anything like you've done. My goodness,
Oh,
that's way out. It's fabulous. Oh my gosh.
thank you.
Yeah, just
Go ahead, Vivian.
This is my first time here, and I am so happy. You really inspired me, Lynda. This is amazing. I am a new grandmother, and I right now I'm thinking I have tons of pictures of my parents, my grandparents, my great grandparents.
Oh my gosh.
I have, some marriage certificates and all that stuff. And you inspire me big time. I just feel like I'm high and I am not high on anything, just happy, happy, So
Oh,
I wanted to say thank you. Thank you,
Oh.
thank you.
well, I'm excited for you. And if you have any questions, you can get hold of me. And it's lindaheines.com, but I can put my email in there. If you have any questions, if there any way I can encourage you and I'd love to see it too. I'd love to see what you do. So,
Oh, just absolutely phenomenal. Thinking of, I have a 2-year-old granddaughter and a newborn baby boy grandson. So I want to make this for them, so they can see their history, their ancestry. And I have some things from my mom, like, so I just feel overwhelmed with joy because it's like everything I have to put it together. How do you say? How do you say aterrizar? To put it in ground, to make it. Because I have the pictures, I have this, I have that, I am creative. So now I have to put this together and you helped me a lot. So thank you. Yes, if you give me your email.
yes, I will do it right now.
I'll have all the contact info in the recording as well.
Oh, you will? Okay.
Yes. There you go. Just drop it into the message. Other questions and comments, come on in. There you go.
I absolutely loved the little dress book, the book of dresses. I really appreciate that. It's a great learning tool for a little girl or something to also have. I wish I'd had something like that when you're older, like what little dresses I wore, or as well as the learning tool, just even snippets of my old dresses would be really lovely. So I think that's a really lovely idea. One thing that comes to mind, I'm a writer, and one of the things that comes to mind as I see all this is interesting where you want to be part of telling the story of the old, which I really think is the creative part. One of the things I think that sometimes people miss a little, if they have the access to do research, is a little less chronology and a little more personality. So like when I think of my grandmother or relatives, it's easy to get wrapped up in, well, they were born here, they died here, they had
Right.
grand aunt so-and-so, and you get all kind of like that, which is important if you're telling a history, but you kind of think, well, what was their favorite color? Was the favorite recipe, like, did she serve it on a cake plate? Or, you know, the little personality quirks. And I think it would be lovely to see also, you know, as I mean, I'm not doing this all the time, but it would be lovely to see more the personality also of the person.
I think
I
that's
understand, and that's
You
all
know what
about,
I'm saying? Like, it's it sort of builds it into the story as well as the picture, what her
right.
favorite color was or her favorite food, or like, and if you know that, I think that part of it, if you knew like your great grandmother loved yellow or she hated pink from any letters, or just even from, you know, she took, you know, her wedding bouquet. If you look at the flowers, you're like, okay, that woman, when she was a young girl, she loved white roses. So, you know, working those motifs also into the work as the artist creating it could be so much fun, like such a challenge, but because there's so many levels to work on here, which
Oh,
you're
yeah.
really amazing, you know, in all that you're doing. But it strikes me as that's also another level where people could kind of take it.
And that's what, a lot of people think about genealogy, that it's just dates. And it's not. It's all about the story, what's behind it. And it's just like the pictures tell a lot of stories too. Like my grandfather, and him with that other guy there. And then I had the pins that they, gave out, just things like that. Of course, that brings back memories to me. But another thing I wanted to say on Jillian's book, I also made another book for her, and it was on colors. And every page was colors like blue, green, that were color fabric I had dyed or printed or whatever. And then I had blue written as blue. Her dad is French, so I had bleu. I had the French
Okay. Oh,
equivalent.
lovely.
So I was teaching her not only her colors, and I had felt that I had like there was like a square like for the green one, and then you take this felt thing and you put it there if you got the right color. So that way her father loved it, and of course I was trying to get in good with him, because he didn't really know me that well, and here I'm trying to help her with her French. So anyway, but yeah, those were a lot of fun to make. So but anyway, but I understand what you're saying. You are so right. There's so much more.
Well,
I think
I mean,
that's
it's just there's endless. And when I start, I appreciate that what you're offering is there's to get you started. And then, the artist, the writer, the storyteller, and all of us can be like, okay, how can we go from here with what we know? But it seems like I love the fabric as a medium and all of that. And then I love the idea of what else can we bring in about those people in the choices, like as an artist, that you make. I've done some work as a mixed media artist, and I had done a painting after I had done a trip to India. It was like a little inset of this of a flower that was in the Taj Mahal. Kind of sounds random, I know. But anyway, I had used some old bangles that I had in my jewelry box to outline the flower, because I had these old bangles from when I traveled, and I used to put those in my paintings. And a woman came in and said, oh, I would like something like this, but can I bring in my daughter's little bangles and my mother-in-law's bangles? And can we do it as a family art thing, like
Wow.
on the canvas? And I was like, oh, well, I had never thought that people would bring in their own stuff, like for
Right.
me to make into a painting. Anyway, it ended up being 50 by 50. It was a huge commission. but and she brought in like scraps of her mother's saris, and I do paintings with that stuff. And so we kind of put all this stuff in there and like had an art piece. Now that was on canvas, but I can imagine like you could have so much fun. As I'm also a sewer, I love it, like doing that on fabric. But yeah, so I mean, I love your basis of ideas and using fabric to storytell, and the photos in there. It is such a it's something different than having it in a photo album. So I think that's really great work.
Well, thank you. And you've given me ideas. I mean, I don't have much of grandma's stuff, but I have my mom and dad's. And if I did something on them, I mean, I've got the ties she made for him, and scraps from her dresses and things like that. So there's a lot of things there. So that's interesting. It's just I didn't have a lot of their stuff, grandma's stuff. But
Right. No, it's hard, but it's something to think about. Even others, the copies of other stuff or what like of the pens, or I don't know. I was thinking more about the food stuff. Like maybe you don't make the recipe, but I don't know. Some people have like hand-me-down bowl. Like, I don't know. I have one of my grandmother's bread bowls,
Wooden
and it's
spoons.
like,
Yeah.
taking a photo of that to put the recipe in or something. I don't know. Like, I could have a gazillion ideas from your talk here. So I'll be
good.
busy. Yeah.
That's
So
great.
really nice stuff.
What I love about all of this is to appreciate that fabric is like a vessel. It carries with it so much. To see a little dress that you remember wearing and then you repurposing it into now something to learn how to button, or to reflect back on it 50 years later and remember that dress that you used to wear. There's no words that would have explained that idea. And it's just such a wonderful reminder how, yes, words can carry a lot of other meanings, but here you're playing with objects to do that. It's mind blowing, whether it's a bangle, a wooden spoon, or a piece of fabric or a dress.
Yep.
Genius. And thank you, Kathy, for chiming in. I think many of you will remember Kathy's talk for Projectkin in a project recipe she wrote for us back in January, February, March, earlier this year, talking about a new project that she's working on from her own grandmother's stories. So stay tuned for more about that one, and I'll include links for things like that in the notes.
And thank you, Mary, too, for talking about the laser printing too. That's great. I'm glad that there is some of that for that. But
tell me about sewing machines. Do I need to be worried about having a sewing machine that's a general purpose and not a specialty quilting machine or something like that?
it depends on what you're talking about. Whatever yours is. I mean, you want to have something that's pretty sturdy. I mean, you don't want some, $100 machine.
Yeah.
Although
No.
I guess you can, and Mary, you could chime in on this, but I just, I have several, and I have my preference, but there's just so you have something that's somewhat sturdy.
Yeah. I'll probably break a few needles before I figure out the right size.
But it's
I have
the jeans. What's difficult? The jeans are difficult, and you have to use a jeans needle. And I've had trouble. In fact, I messed up one of my vintage machines doing some other stuff with it that was just too strong. The jeans, I just have to be careful and not push stuff through. But I'm sorry, Mary, you gonna say something?
well, I kind of go slow and practice on make your quilt sandwich and kind of practice with something you don't care about, but look at the fabric and make sure that you can do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And some things you just can't do, like that jeans book. I decided I was going to I changed it so many times. I was going to sew all 3 signatures, so it'd have a total of 12 pages into the cover. Well, I sewed the first one, was fine. I couldn't sew the other ones. It just did not work. So I had to end up tearing it out and hand sewing it. So things like that you find out as you do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For the you had me with the rings, the little circular rings. I happen to have a lot of those. Can you use buttonholes for the holes instead of grommets?
Oh, sure. Sure, I don't see why not. Also, you could do, and I've seen there's a woman on she does woman on Facebook, not Facebook, YouTube. Can't remember what her name is now. Julia. She doesn't even use grommets. She just sews around them a whole bunch of times. So it's real shabby chic, or shabby, whatever they want, boho or whatever. But she'll just keep sewing around it. And I thought about doing that because I was going to do that with grandma's thing, grandpa's thing. but I decided I wanted to use a different binding.
Well, that's just a hand-stitched buttonhole. That's what we call that one.
Oh, well, yeah,
The buttonhole stitch.
right.
Are there hashtags or other search terms that are frequently used? Sewing art, book art, quilting art, words like that that are often used?
Fabric books, of course, quilt art, art quilts, memory art quilts,
Okay.
memory quilts.
Well, I'll be sharing this recording in all the usual places. We're on 10 9, I dropped to X, social media channels now. And this, for the first time, will be our very first experiment in cross-posting Projectkin event recordings to YouTube. So hello, YouTube. Projectkin, or rather youtube.com/Projectkin. At Projectkin, why not? And so I'm paying attention to new ways to get attention to new audiences. Welcome everyone into projectkin.org, where our events are free, our community is warm and welcoming, and we're all about family history storytelling in any way, any form that gets it done, including fabric, including visuals, including creativity, most of all. And Lynda, I'm absolutely delighted to peel back what I've known has been this art talent all along, to have you share some of that joy and inspiration with our community. As you can tell by the community response already, we're pretty excited. And maybe next time we need to think about carpentry. And then plumbing, who knows? I think creativity is key. And I love Catherine Graven's suggestion of thinking about these as ways to bring in the personality. Because I think that at the end of the story, personality is character, character is the root of these stories. You put those into a timeline, a people, place, time, and pretty soon you've got a whole story unfurling, right? So it's been a delight to have you all, and I want to thank you. We will have this recording along with as many of the notes that I've captured. You can send me more that you think of, either in comments at the bottom of the post or via email now, and I will include them before it goes out. I hope to have it out within a couple of hours, as I usually do. It goes out by email to all of our members. And I'm going to follow up on all the registrations to see if I missed anybody. And we'll be delighted to have you join us.
I want to
And
say, if I could, thank you all.
please.
I appreciate you coming and watching, and all the great questions and suggestions. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much.
And wonderful resources. Keep them
Thank you
coming.
so much. I got a lot out of this.
Thank you. See you guys later. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye all.
Thank you. Bye.